The trip. This way, Lucy says, as Tim chases her down the phosphorescent tunnel, screeching echoes from their footsteps rebounding all the way along. Come on, we're so late! Despite of it, they're laughing as they run, both burdened by constricting straps and heavy swinging luggage. They reach the gate and pant their apologies. You're lucky, replies the woman at the counter as she scans their boarding passes. We were just about to close it. Her manner seems only mildly scolding, and as they make for the jet bridge, she flashes Tim a bright white smirk. We're those people, Lucy says, to which he returns a vacant glance. You know, the ones that saunter in at the last second, when everyone's been sitting on the plane for 20 minutes wondering why it hasn't taken off. Tim laughs. Oh, you're right. I hope that'd never be me. Let's be sure not to saunter. Once they cross the suspended channel, however, the stewards look no less than thrilled to greet them. There are no tuts, no looks of condemnation. In fact, people are still standing in the aisle, hoisting hand luggage into overhead compartments. Lucy spots a woman in an arm cast trying desperately to lift her case. She's barely able to boost it to her knee, however, and no one nearby has offered to help. Here, let me give you a hand, Lucy says, but her scrunched features soon confess that the case is also too heavy for her. Tim gently pats her on the shoulder, and she frowns, sticking out her tongue before begrudgingly stepping aside. He lifts the item with relative ease, slots it away, and hears the woman uttering her thanks. Then he turns back to be met with a face so beautiful it's almost startling. She touches his arm, regarding him with a look he can't recall receiving for a long while. One flirtatious enough to send the blood rushing to his cheeks. Oh, no worries, Tim blurts, and guilt propels him down the aisle towards Lucy, who thankfully seems oblivious. As the couple find their row, it strikes Tim how charming the interior of the plane is. It looks more like an upmarket boutique than a chartered jet, each letting out a blissful sigh, then melt into their seats and turn to face one another. Lucy is the only one Tim can picture being with in such a moment, embarking on this potentially life-changing adventure. No broken-arm temptress, no matter how stunning, could ever disabuse him of this fact. The unmistakable sound of the Beatles flows from the speakers in the headrest. Lucy in the sky with diamonds. Tim chuckles. We're singing about you, babe, he says. But his girlfriend merely raises an eyebrow in response. Perhaps she can't hear it. Ice-cold beers are set out in front of them, and when Lucy slowly takes a swig of hers, Tim can't help thinking how cool she looks. As is typical in her company, he feels the complete reverse. A concern compounded mere seconds later. Smash! He topples his beer bottle as he reaches for it, shattering the glass and spattering its contents everywhere. You're so clumsy, Lucy cries, giggling. Sorry, Tim says, mortified. A flight attendant accepts his apology with a smile and says she'll return shortly to clean the mess. Tim frowns. Real glass bottles on a flight? Only now does this strike him as odd. The ensuing hours are divided into two curious transitions. The couple spend the first laughing, telling jokes and posing riddles. Then this evolves into a heartfelt exploration of their dreams and ambitions. Before Tim knows it, the plane is landing. He's never known a long-haul flight to pass by so effortlessly. You're going to change the world, Lucy whispers in his ear as they wait to exit. Yes, he suddenly thinks. The conference. The sole purpose of the trip. Intoxicated by her presence as he'd been, it almost slipped his mind. How was that even possible? As he shrugs this away, another perplexity skulks in. No one ever did come back to clear that broken glass. Stepping off the plane, Tim is engulfed by a waft of warm air. He gazes at a limitless azure sky, which possesses a strange panoramic quality, as though extended just for them. Their driver is already waiting when they enter arrivals. Diego, an Ecuadorian with a smile so large it seems comical. His English is perfect, and the three of them speak at length while the windows relay rustic resplendence. Vibrant colours flash by like a kaleidoscopic reverie. When they finally come to a stop, Tim's face aches from smiling. He attempts to hand Diego a generous tip along with the fare, but the man won't take it, insisting that the couple have brightened his day. Their farewell is virtually cinematic, a three-way hug that feels both ludicrous and totally earnest. Wow, Lucy sighs after they wave the driver off. We're so lucky to be here. Tim acknowledges a sudden, wondrous moment of connection, the type of feeling that only arises every now and then, almost like a remembrance or instance of intense gratitude, yet somehow condensed into a millisecond and more potent than words could possibly express. He smiles, embracing both Lucy and the moment itself. She breaks the clinch after a few seconds and sprints out the back door of the lodge. Tim chases her onto the deck, watching as she removes all her clothes and leaps into the clear blue water at the end. Slightly abashed, he follows suit. The couple swim and tread water until the sun begins to set and they're dazzled by brilliant violet rays, ricocheting across the surface in all directions, generating a veil of glittering gemstones. A thought crosses Tim's mind of how perfect the moment is. Then his heart seems to stop. He's unable to catch his breath, and his surroundings appear to shift and change. He feels dizzy, nauseated. When he looks at Lucy, her eyes betray an expression of panic. Are you okay? Yeah, he laughs, managing to regain his breath. I was just overcome with happiness. You big softy, Lucy says. Come on, let's go inside. As she climbs onto the deck, he admires her naked form for a moment, which appears all the more radiant in the now twilight sky. Hurry up, pervert, she yells before running inside. Once he catches up with her in the bedroom of the lodge, a wild yet perfect period of time elapses, their bodies merging, disconnecting and reconnecting, spiraling into one another like pulses of exquisite energy. Then they sleep. Several hours later, Tim wakes up in bed to notice that Lucy has rolled the covers away from him. He looks down, regarding the tautness of his own abdomen. Heavy shadows embellish the contours of muscle. He grins, briefly reflecting that he's in his prime. He wakes again at daybreak, without the faintest reminiscence of a dream. Today's the big day, the climax of his adventure. It's arrived so quickly that he can barely recall any of the anticipation, the expectancy leading up to it. This afternoon he's to give a talk on environmental conservation, to propose an idea that will change the world. There'll be people chanting your name in the streets by this time tomorrow, Lucy says, straightening his tie. Despite his nerves, Tim shares his partner's confidence. He's certain his ideas are revolutionary, his proposal practically bulletproof. All he needs is the backing of the right people. At the front of the lodge, his team has arrived to escort him to the conference. He and Lucy are guided into a stretched limousine, the interior of which looks like an exclusive lounge, bearing little resemblance to the back of a car. You have all the projections at your disposal. Stay calm, stay resolute. We all know the idea is sound, and soon they'll know it too. While Tim is too engrossed in his notes to discern who's speaking to him, he nods in agreement. Long before he can ready himself, his door is opening, revealing an enormous conference centre. He's ushered through a back door, and then onto a massive theatre platform where he can hear the murmur of a crowd. You're going to be brilliant, Lucy says, side of stage. Tim hears his name being read out, the audience erupting with applause. Heart pounding, he advances to the podium and patiently waits for the patter to dissipate. Silence falls and words begin to flow from his lips, though they do not truly feel like words. The speech itself feels more like a dance, a fluent recital of intonations, modulations, and powerful, precise pauses. The audience responds perfectly to every syllable, to every utterance that issues from his mouth. Before long, he realizes that he has them eating from the palm of his hand. So caught up in the moment, it becomes hard to determine where he's reached in his address. But simply knowing that he's driven home his proposal masterfully, he launches into the conclusion. Then, in the midst of his oratory crescendo, he notices the audience beginning to rise. A standing ovation? He'd not imagined such a response. Overwhelmed, the man fights against fast-forming tears. But upon thanking the crowd, he's halted by a short stabbing in his chest. He clears his throat, attempts to speak once more. Now a harsh tickling prevents him from doing so. He coughs, this time involuntarily, and alarmingly the room begins to warp. With each preceding cough, large cracks form in the ceiling. Though it's not merely a disruption in the building, he notices. It's a break in the structure of the sky, in the air itself. The very fabric of the universe is fraying before his eyes. As he continues to cough, then follows the largest rupture yet. The ground parts, discharging luminosity. A violent onslaught of colour. A chromatic spectrum of impossible amplitude. Tim turns to Lucy in terrified awe. As she attempts to pacify him, he becomes entirely transfixed on her teeth. Such beautiful, perfect teeth. He continues staring at them as she speaks, now gripping her hand for dear life. "It'll be okay, my love," she says. The walls around her dissolve, the crowd deliquesces, then the hand he's holding melts away. 2 of Lucy's teeth noticeably rot to nothing, and the remaining ones are far from perfect. They're crooked and greatly discoloured. "Lucy?" Tim moans while the whole scene fades away. "What did you say?" asks the rotted mouth. Slammed back to reality, Tim's shabby surroundings remain wavy. Trails of phosphorescence discharge from every object in the room, and his periphery is framed by pulsations of white light. He looks down, regarding that his shirt is halfway up his body. Heavy shadows embellish the folds of flab. He grimaces, briefly reflecting that he is well past his prime. On a ragged coffee table sits a document enclosed in a plastic binder. He picks it up. It's old and heavily worn. He reads the title aloud. Radical Developments in Renewable Energy. A proposed countermeasure to extreme climate change and widespread air pollution. "What's that then?" spits the voice from beside him. "Oh," Tim replies. "It's an old uni essay. My dissertation, actually." He hears a loud chuckle. "You must have been holding on to that for some time." Tim nods, flicking through the pages. On the very last one he spots a yellow post-it note. Years of wear have rendered the writing almost indistinguishable. "You're going to change the world, Lucy." Tim regards that the vinyl floor is wet, strewn with cigarette butts and the shards of a broken beer bottle. Realization descends over him. He recognizes his rotten-toothed friend. "Did I do this?" he asks him, nodding at the glass. "Yeah," he laughs. "Looked like you were having one hell of a trip."